and dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.tv. Thank you for joining me this evening. We'll be diving into a lot of different topics. We'll kind of get into the whole 2016 circus here, circus that we're calling an election. We also have some articles about the Texas governor versus BLM. A law that was lifted in Florida. We'll get into that. We'll also get into McAfee came out and spoke out against the FBI again. Have an article from Business Insider covering that. And quite a few other articles we'll cover. I also want to get into a Ron Paul Liberty report, Hidden Taxes, a Cruel Deception. Many people know of, the most common taxes that we call taxes. But really, when you step back and look at the broader scope, we don't realize to what extent our wealth is stolen from us, because taxation is theft, legitimized by government itself and the few people that take part in the system and accept the system when it says that it should be allowed to steal from you. So we'll get into this Ron Paul Liberty report and talk about this right after it. So here we go. Ron Paul Liberty report, Hidden Taxes, a Cruel Deception.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, the co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Very good. We're going to talk about your favorite subject, since you enjoy paying your taxes.
That's right. So patriotic.
We want to talk about taxation in general. Why there are so many taxes, and try to get people to understand that there's a lot more to taxation than the income tax. If we had a limited government, which is a daydream, and we had none of these hidden taxes. We're going to be talking about hidden taxes that people don't even pay attention to, and they don't even think of it as taxes. That maybe 1%, 2%, 3%, like they originally started. And they said that's all we need to run the government, which was a lie even back then. It would be a lot different, but that isn't the case. We have the income tax, but the income tax is a lot lot less important than the hidden taxes, because right now they say, well, poor people don't pay income taxes, which is true according to the current definition. But 40-50% of the lower bracket don't pay. During the presidential campaign, it came up and they said, one of the other candidates said, we got to make everybody pay a little bit. There's people who don't pay anything has to pay their percentage. And I said, well, we're halfway there. They didn't pay any taxes. I was all for that. But anyway, people do think about the income tax. The other day, we talked about tariffs. There was some confusions on some of our listeners about exactly what a tariff was. I call it a tax. And there's a lot of other things like this. So I want to just talk about that a little bit. And I'm sure you have some ideas about the best way to tax or not tax. But in the meantime, what I'm trying to do is get information out for people to see that the cost of government is much bigger. Even if they're not paying income taxes, they're paying the penalty of excessive government spending.
It's like an iceberg, right? You see this tax, but you don't see all this stuff. Well, what are some of these things that you would call, quote, hidden taxes?
Well, one of the big ones that I've talked about, and I've been able to bring it up frequently, is the inflation tax. And I remember bringing that up years and years ago, and even in the campaign, the presidential campaign, people said, "What are you talking about? The inflation tax?" And that was my answer. What is the most detrimental tax? And they're all detrimental, but I equate spending with taxes. That's really where the big tax is, just spending the money. But the inflation tax is the most deceitful and dishonest and penalizes the poor and the middle class the most. Because they come along and they say, well, we have to take care of the poor, and they have a moral justification, which I don't accept. And then they say there's a moral justification for caring for the world because there's poor people around the world. We have to take care of them. We're wealthy. And there's a lot of political problems around the world, and we have to correct it, so therefore we have to be the policemen of the world. So we have all this moral justification, and the people don't pay a whole lot of attention, but their politicians are influenced and controlled by special interests, so they spend the money. And an ordinary community or an ordinary business or an ordinary person would have to quit spending because they'd run out of money. But not a government, especially if it's the government like ours that we have the authority to print the reserve currency of the world. So we run up the debt and we just print the money. We don't print money. That's a technicality. That's incorrect. They don't do too much of that, but they create computer entries for the tune of trillions of dollars just by clicking a computer. And that's so-called money. It's not wealth, but it's money. Now, what happens is when they do this to pay for government, which is benefiting special interests, when they spend the money, many times it's the corporate benefits that they get. When that money gets into circulation, it spreads around. And it takes a while, 1, 2, 3, 4 years for this money to spread around. By the time the average person gets it, the cost of living goes up. Instead of it creating new wealth, like we're living in a circumstance like this now, we have no economic growth and they can't figure it out, but there's a lot of money. But prices are going up and they're going to go up a lot more. But who suffers the most? It's the middle class and the poor. When that happens, that is called a regressive tax. And the regressive tax means the poor suffer the most. So what we need to try to do is get people to understand that the cost of government is much more painful than they realize. It's not the amount of money that you pay on your income tax form at the end of the year.
It seems to me one of the greatest inflation taxes would be our foreign policy in the empire. It's kind of ironic because you have the middle class, to a degree at least, by and large, supporting the idea of a strong military overseas, and yet how many trillions of dollars have we spent on the war on terror, and we keep getting more terror because of it. And they don't see the bill. They never get a check. They never get a bill in the mail for it.
And this is held together because there's still trust in the dollar, but logic tells us that will come to an end. But something happened during World War II that helped to hide taxes and reassure the people their taxes aren't too high, and that is the principle of a withholding tax. So the businessman had been enslaved. If you don't withhold tax from your employee, you're in big trouble and you can go to prison for it. So they enslave us to keep the records, collect it for the government, and send it off. And 9 out of 10 average people right now that's working and having their wages, they don't look at their gross income. they look like, what's my check going to be?
Yeah.
And they have the deductions for Social Security and withholding taxes and all this. And at the end of the year, they'll say, oh, well, I got some money back from the government, and they think it's a good deal.
The gift.
So just think of the difference. I had a bill once that I introduced to abolish withholding taxes to wake the people up. So if people knew they had to pay a tax every 30 days at the end of the month, believe me, this whole system would end instead of deceiving the people through inflation and borrowing. So the withholding tax does a lot to deceive people and help hide this tax. But this issue of tariffs, that's been around a long time. It's in the presidential campaign, and some people argued on the internet that this isn't a tax. This is punishing China and these different places. Yeah. But what if you're poor and you happen to be benefiting from products that are coming in from these other countries, and the poor people here are compensating, and they're able to buy tennis shoes for $25. And if you couldn't buy shoes, I'm making up the numbers. I don't know what. You could $25 if you get them imported from China, but if you get them made in the United States and you have wage pressures and different things like that, and you get $100, how's that going to help the poor people? So if you put the tariff on and the prices go up, maybe they don't go up to $100. Maybe they go up to $60. Maybe the price doubled, and the people still can buy them, but it cuts into that income, and the standard of living goes down. They can buy them less often, and this is a tax because the people end up paying for it. And technically, they'll say, well, no, it's not a tax. The candidates have their tax programs, and they never mention that they're going to tax the poor people. Well, that's part of the deception. That's tradition. You don't want to come up and say, I'm going to tax somebody, because you lose elections by doing that. What you do is you say, I'm going to spend something. That's what wins elections. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to give you free medical care and free education and the whole works. So that's a better deal than talking about either direct taxes or hidden taxes.
Yeah, I did notice that a lot of our viewers were having a bit of criticism over this idea that how can this be a tax, it's tariff, but they never see the other end of the other side of it, as you pointed out, not being able to afford a pair of tennis shoes.
No, that is, I think, what they failed to do. But there's another tax that's very deceptive, and that's the Social Security tax, because once again it's regressive, which means the poor suffer more than the wealthy.
If you could explain that a little more, that would be great.
Yeah, the poor, if you tax the lower income people more than the wealthy, that's regressive. But if you can say, don't ever tax the poor, tax the rich, which is very popular. In a way, that's sitting out there, but the rich finally get their tax havens, and the poor don't pay income tax, but they pay all the hidden taxes. Yeah. And they think, well, it's because we have to crack down on corporation. They should crack down on the fake corporations, the people who benefit from government and all this. But no, they suffer the consequence. The poor do. They're in regressive. Social Security is a regressive tax because if you're making because there's a limit on the amount of income you have to pay on this. It's gradually going up, but if you're making $10 million a year, they don't worry about paying income tax. But if you're a poor person, you're not paying income tax, but you have a Social Security tax, that's a big hunk out of your check. And why I say it's dishonest is there's no Social Security fund. The fund goes all into the general fund, and it's all spent. It's not there. It's nothing like insurance. If it's an insurance policy, what you have left over goes to your beneficiary. There's no beneficiaries in Social Security. So it is a regressive tax. The poor pay it, and it's actually a redistribution of wealth, because the money leaves the poor people, and it comes out of the family, and the family doesn't they don't get anything back again. So that is a tax, but nobody. It's just too hard to explain that in a presidential campaign. But okay, we need to straighten this out. Every once in a while, somebody will mention Social Security, but that's a sacred cow. And the only thing that keeps that together is this illusion that you can create new money out of thin air forever, and it's going to maintain its purchasing power, and you're not going to have an economy go into the doldrums like we've had for 16 years now with no significant economic growth because of this taxation. But people have to remember that it starts with spending. I claim all spending is a tax, and a tax in quotes because it taxes the economy. Regulations are a tax on the economy because they have to be paid for. What about corporations? Oh, people say the solution is tax the corporation. But what if you're working on a close margin? What if you're taxed by saying you have to double the wages of your employees? From $8 an hour to $16 an hour. It's not a good economic policy. But if you tax the corporations either with regulations or excessive wages or just a higher income tax, and we have a high income tax. Corporations are paying 35% to 40%, and other countries are much lower. So we're not leading the charge. But how do they do that? They have to push the price of our products high. That's why people want to buy cheap. That's why they go overseas to buy a cheaper product, because the corporations can't be competitive. And then if the corporation said, my job is to satisfy the consumer. That's really what the job is, because markets are designed to help the consumer. So if I'm designed to help the consumer, I have to do something about this. I have to take care of my stockholders. So what I have to do is find a way to do this. So I'm going to do a natural thing is I'm going to go where the taxes are lower and labor is lower and provide for the people who need something. But then you become un-American, to do this, because you're the sinner. You're the one who created the situation where somebody lost their jobs. And that, of course, is just pure demagoguery, no understanding of economic policy at all, no desire to know about free market economics. And it is sad because under these circumstances, the people get poorer. And I think that's where we are today.
So on the one hand, you got to crack down on corporations and raise their taxes and regulations. On the other hand, they dare not leave this country.
That's right. That's right. Matter of fact, they want to be taxed. They'll tax them to leave. And
the other thing we were talking about before the show was semi-hidden taxes. That they're there, but you don't notice them as much. Sin taxes and a few others.
Those taxes, that's deceitful, but it's not hidden. If you go, I assume, I don't go to movie theaters, but I bet you pay a tax to go to a movie. And I bet if you get on an airplane, which we do, you pay a tax on that. Yeah. If you go, you pay tax to buy your gasoline. It's on and on. Everybody knows they pay the taxes, but you don't add it all up. Percentage wise, it's regressive because if you're in low income, you might spend 90% or more of your budget just to get by. So the percentage is tremendous versus if you're very wealthy, the percentage of your sin taxes, if they are buying alcohol,
bottle of wine,
they call that a sin tax. That doesn't bother a wealthy person, but if somebody else wants to go out and have a beer, they have to pay a tax on this. So those are not hidden; they're up in the open, but they're invisible to the non-observer. If they don't observe it, that's why they can dwell on looking for somebody to blame. If they could just blame somebody for this and say, well, it's corporate greed that does that. Without even asking about what is crony capitalism. Crony capitalism has something to do with this too. So taxation is very detrimental. I think that the 16th Amendment was a real disaster. Legalizing the income tax, and of course some people still argue the way it's collected is totally unconstitutional. But 90% of what our government does, as far as I'm concerned, is unconstitutional. It's overextended domestically. It's overextended in our personal lives, of spying on us. It's overextended in our economic lives. They know everything that we do. It's overextended in economic regulations that has driven us into a precarious situation where there's no economic growth. And it is driven with this system that we have into a foreign policy disaster, which does nothing more than create more enemies and costs a lot of money and serves the interests of the military industrial complex, the banking system, the whole mess. So I would say that what we need is a restraint on government spending, honest money, where you don't have to spend so much time on taxes. And the only conclusion I would have is, if you really want to know how much taxes you're paying, you have to look at the hidden taxes and the taxes that you forget about, and not be deceived into thinking, well, we can put taxes on people that are sending in imports here and it won't hurt the poor people. Believe me, all this hurts the poor. All that we do in Washington is regressive in the sense that the poor get poorer. And the answer to this, of course, is not too complicated. Why don't we try, at least make an effort to obey the Constitution, because the Constitution did give us guidelines to limiting the size and scope of government. That would be a long way in the direction of having a much better system. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.
Ron Paul Liberty Report, Ron Paul Liberty Report on YouTube, and RonPaulLibertyReport.com. Check them out, subscribe. Now, there's a lot of different things that we're taxed on, and we just don't realize it because we're so used to it. When you go buy gas, because it's already in the price, you just don't think, taxed. Candy bar tax, soft drink tax, coffee tax. Everything that you do is taxed, and then your income is taxed. And a lot of us around here joke, well, I got so much back from the government that they stole. They gave me, a percentage of what they stole back. Because it really is theft. Because, well, if you don't pay it, they can come with guns and take your stuff away. That's theft. It's coercion. Call it what it is. If the mob does it and it's illegal, then, government doing it doesn't make it somehow more moral. Okay, I did want to kind of cover a little bit of good news here. If it'll load. Here we go. This actually is from News4Jax.com. And this says ban on cohabitation lifted in Florida after 148 years. And what this is one of those outdated laws that's not enforced, but you know what? I've talked about this before about they might not enforce a law, but if they're not taking it off the books, why not? Well, we're not going to enforce it. It's stupid law. Well, then take it off the books. Get rid of the law. If you keep it on the books, what that gives is the ability for someone else to get into office and go, yeah, I like that law. We haven't enforced it in 75 years, but I like that law. Let's start enforcing it. Make criminals out of people. But this is, again, ban on cohabitation lifted in Florida after 148 years. And it is still illegal in Mississippi and Michigan. So people in Mississippi and Michigan, you probably should be aware of this, because even though they may not enforce it, you're still doing something that's illegal, and if they're not going to enforce it, take it off the books. That way you're not doing a criminal activity. You go, I'm not a criminal for doing. By law you are. Moral, that's opinion. It says here, couples can now legally cohabit in Florida after 148 years of the practice being illegal. Governor Rick Scott signed a bill repealing the law this week. Men and women who lived together before marriage was defined in Florida law as tululi and lasciviously associate, which was a second-degree misdemeanor according to the Miami Herald. Violators could face up to 60 days in jail and $500 fine. Michigan and Mississippi are the two remaining states where cohabitation is illegal, the Herald reported. And I guess that's it. Browser's just acting slow for some reason. It shouldn't be. And then, you look at that law, there's so many stupid laws. Just type in stupid laws by state, and you'll see some of the laws out there that are on the books. They haven't been repealed. It makes a lot of people criminals for things they do and wouldn't even know they're criminal for doing it. And, people go, I don't care if people know what I do or what I say because I don't do anything illegal. You might want to second guess that. You might want to start actually looking at some of the laws that are on the books in certain states. Because you might just be violating the law. And you wonder why maybe government surveillance on its own citizens might not be a good idea. Because it's not going to stop crime, violent crimes, and, things that are actually bad for a society. But it will make more, innocent, peaceful people criminals. There are certain states that have laws about when you can take a shower or a bath. So, you have to look at things like that. Oh, BLM in the news again. Let me try to get to this original article. I have to open this in a different browser here. Let's see if I can. This. Being a pain in my butt here. Sorry. Okay. I'm just going to read it from here. Says via Breitbart. In a letter to Bureau of Land Management, Director Neil Corns, Texas Governor Greg Abbott wrote, the BLM should demonstrate that the federal government still respects private property rights and this unconscionable land grab. The letter was sent regarding the ongoing battle between Texas landowners and the federal government. Abbott's letter references the battle between Texas landowners and the BLM, first reported nationally by Breitbart, Texas in April 2014. At that time, the Texas Attorney General Abbott told Breitbart, Texas in an exclusive interview, I am about ready to go to the Red River and raise a come and take it flag to tell the feds to stay out of Texas. Abbott sent a letter to Courts on April 22nd, detailing the concerns over actions taken by the BLM to swoop in and take land that has been owned and cultivated by Texas landowners for generations. In the Texas governor's newest letter to the federal agency, Abbott expressed the frustrations felt by many of the landowners who have been involved in this ongoing battle. Abbott wrote, Texas will not wait any longer. The governor reminded courts on his previous letters on the issue, my fellow Texans and I are still waiting for an answer. Abbott wrote, the BLM has yet to identify what land the federal government newly claims as its own. The BLM has yet to identify the legal basis for that claim. And the BLM has yet to identify the process by which Texans can protect their land and private property rights. Governor Abbott's office confirmed to Breitbart, Texas, they did receive 2 letters from Director Corntz. They indicated, however, the director's letters were not responsive to the questions that were asked by the then Texas Attorney General. Director Corntz's letters are attached below. Again, this is at freedomdaily.com. Abbott's letter continues, the landowners along the Red River have lived and labored on this land for generations. The BLM now inexplicably seeks to take control of thousands of acres of private land for undetermined recreational activities. Throughout the process, the BLM has minimized the landowners' grave and legitimate concerns while providing no clarity regarding the authority for taking the land in the first place. Which is BLM. They just think they can go in and just take it and not have to do anything. Explaining to landowners that the process is long and complex, that surveys will be done, or that landowners will eventually be able to file a color of title lawsuit is neither solution nor solace. Instead, it is an illegal taking. These actions harm Texans now by clouding the title to the land their families have owned for generations. As well as you well know, the BLM's actions prevent landowners from borrowing against the land to finance business operations, or selling the land to new owners looking to cultivate their own economic freedom. But the implications of your actions are not merely financial. In many cases, your actions threaten to take the very homes above these Texans' heads. In August, Breitbart, Texas reported that Texas farmer Tommy Henderson won his 30-year battle with the federal government to get his land back, land that had been in his family undisputed possession and control since 1904. Abbott chastised the BLM for failing to resolve Henderson's land issue in a timely manner and stated that the government's actions have deprived a Texas family of their private property for 30 years. Unfortunately, Abbott wrote, the realization of this mistake does not appear to have deterred BLM's much larger land grab. As the old saying goes, those who don't learn from their history are doomed to repeat it, but Texas isn't going to let history repeat itself. Abbott's letter concludes, our Constitution, the same Constitution you have taken an oath to uphold, rests on the principle that governments are created to protect private property owners' rights, nor not destroy them. This principle is enshrined in the Fifth Amendment of our founding document. The BLM should demonstrate that the federal government still respects private property rights and end this unconscionable land grab. Breitbart, Texas reached out to BLM spokesman Paul McGuire for a reaction to Abbott's letter. Our senior leadership is aware of government Abbott's letter, McGuire wrote in a response to Breitbart, Texas inquiry inquiry. We don't have a formal response at this time. Abbott's letter came shortly after Breitbart, Texas reported that the BLM was conducting a planning meeting in Fort Worth last week. The meeting was attended by members of the public affected by the land issue and other concerned members of the public. Congressman Representative Mac Thornberry's staff also attended. Thornberry had consistently taken a leadership role in this debate from the federal level. Meetings were also held in Oklahoma and Kansas. Officials in the Texas General Land Office said no one from their staff attended the Fort Worth meeting in response to a Breitbart, Texas inquiry in advance of the meeting. The recent alternatives meeting went well, McGuire told Breitbart, Texas in response to an inquiry on Friday. The one in Fort Worth featured considerable discussion and questions about the Red River. In all, very civil and informative discourse. In my assessment, I believe members of the public left with a good understanding of what BLM is seeking in terms of their suggestions for the range of alternatives to be considered. Governor Abbott's entire letter to Director Corns is attached below. Director Corns' previous responses are also posted below. Again, freedomdaily.com. And the title of this article is Texas Governor to BLM, Get Your ASS Out. Now, will he stick with that? What will eventually happen? These meetings that are going on and them saying, well, we had discourse, but all went well. Meaning we're still going through with whatever we do. Now, I've seen this with land grabs by one of the cities here in Indiana where they constantly want to go annexing. And last time they did it, a whole township came out and was like, no, we don't want this at all. Don't want it. Still did it. They didn't care. Now they don't hold so public of meetings. They're public, but you don't hear a lot of discussion about the meetings anymore. But they're running in that problem because here they go again trying to annex. Actually have another couple small towns that are incorporated as one, looking to annex part of that area to prevent that city from annexing it because they are small and they kind of just act as more of a town rather than a city. They can fast track it a lot faster than the city can, and therefore they could annex it before the city gets a chance to, preventing these people from being under the city's grab, which will keep taxes lower, keep money in the community, and the restrictions of the city compared to these towns are considerable, where they just fine you for everything. Most people in the inner city can't afford the fine, and they it's just pitiful. Pitiful. It really is. Okay. Give me a second here. Try to get this loaded up here. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Now we have this whole election thing going on, and I've seen a lot of people support Bernie and all that crap, and it just kind of like, are you paying attention? Are you really paying attention? And I wanted to play this video before I played the second video. This one is from We Are Changed. So is the second video that I'm going to play. But this one is, you won't believe what we saw in socialist Venezuela. And a lot of people know Venezuela right now is collapsing under a socialist system. And you end up finding out, hey, it doesn't work like you think. You can have the stores, but there's nothing on the shelves anymore. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
This is Gradowski of WeAreChange.org here in the barrios of Caracas, Venezuela, one of the top murder capitals of the world. What am I doing here? I'm crazy. As a journalist, I try to give you stories that all the other journalists are afraid to show you. I want to show you the raw truths of exactly what's happening in this world, but I think I did too much coming here to Venezuela. I'm joined by another crazy man, the one and only Jeff Berwick of the Dollar Vigilante. And the things that we have experienced, the things that we have seen here in Venezuela are absolutely insane. Jeff, just go off some of the things we saw here.
Well, I think just coming out of the airport and being told we actually were met by some people that we knew, and them telling us that this is the most dangerous areas just walking out of the airport. And then we found out after we left that just a few hours earlier, a man was killed. They attempted to rob or kidnap him, and then he was killed. That was just our initial. Of course, we had to change money inside the airport because to get the amount of hyperinflation here is actually just unbelievable. You need a backpack full of money to buy a dinner. And then once we got into town, it was just crazy story after crazy story and we're just seeing the lineups. This is a true country in collapse. This is a hyperinflation and socialism reaching its ultimate end.
This is a true economic Armageddon. Venezuela is in a state of emergency right now. Its currency has been devalued 92% since the last 2 years alone. And the things we have been experiencing here, I mean, I grew up in Brooklyn in the 90s. I saw people shot. I saw people stabbed. My friends got killed. I went through all that. But what I've experienced here is far more than I thought I would ever see anywhere in the world. And it's like the criminality is brought on by the government as a way to control the people. Like, we were driving by and our fixer showed us this huge, huge building. And he was like, yeah, this is a building, a skyscraper, that's being run by a criminal organization. There's people squatting in there, and this is where all the kidnapping happens. But you walk around town, and there's government-mandated signs saying gun-free zones everywhere you go, and no smoking signs. While there's massive, incredible crime, our fixer lost two of his best friends who were murdered on two separate incidences just 6 months ago alone. I mean, we were out just walking around last night. Just tell us, like, what was like that experience for you?
It's the first time I've really seen anything like this. It's truly reaching the end of the socialism here, reaching its ultimate end that socialism always ends in. It's also reaching just the end of the currency, the hyperinflation, and I've heard it's hundreds of % a month right now. And we went to some of the restaurants, and all the prices on the menu are in paper, and they like taped onto the menu because they have to change it every week, and sometimes even more than that. It's changing that fast. It's really like, it's interesting, and you brought up the gun-free zones. That's the most interesting part to me, is no one is allowed to have a gun, and this is the murder capital of the world. So we walk into the hotel at night because we're a little crazy. We're told by everyone, don't go out, and we went out. There was no one anywhere. It was like a ghost town. And when we get back, the security guard is hiding behind a door because he doesn't have a gun, and the bad people all have guns.
Yeah, security guards are not allowed to have guns here. There's gun-free zones everywhere, and criminality and murder and kidnapping is at a level that is extremely shocking. Our fixer has a huge medical kit with him in case me and Jeff get stabbed or shot here. We have tinted out windows so no one sees who we are. We always got to lock the door. Last night we were walking with a mutual Tinder match that we had, and we were walking just, from a car to another secure kind of castle club area behind. And as we're walking, she just sees a regular guy, and she's like, and she's running. And we're like, whoa, what the hell? Like, I'm just like mentally getting prepared for anything to happen. And it's just another guy walking down the street. We're driving around and it's totally, completely locked down. I mean, you're going to see some more footage on this YouTube channel as well as Jeff's YouTube channel. But like, no one out on the streets at all. I saw this one crazy 6'5", 350-pound dude who had his hands taped and he was just clenching his knuckles. Just one dude, and it was just like a scene out of The Purge, Anarchy, and it was literally like we're being like transported around. Like, okay, let's go quickly, here. Security guards everywhere. But of course, as you said, we're walking in the hotel room. The people working in the hotel are like in past 3 doors, right, through like a little doorway looking when we came in, and they barricaded the doors with the luggage carriers because like they're even afraid.
That would stop anyone. So those luggage carriers that the valets have, they just put them all in front of the doors. Like, that should do it.
Yeah. We walked in and they're like, just shockingly looked at us and then like quickly went back to their business. But they were behind like 3 other doors that they could easily lock and protect themselves in, which kind of gives me the idea that the government here kind of uses this criminality, uses this violence as a way to control the people. So people think we need more police, we need more government. And the criminals here are running around just doing whatever they want, kidnapping whoever they want, murdering whoever they want with pure impunity. Meanwhile, the government sends in their agents to every business, to every private place, to every public park to make sure that everyone has mandated signs that say no smoking, no guns, and you can't be racist. With 50 permits that a restaurant has to have, and they are spending their resources here in Venezuela to making sure that everything is socially acceptable, that people are not violating the gun-free zones, which are insane. I mean, talk about more about this kind of state that the people here in Venezuela, because we've seen everything here.
Yeah, when you talk about the state of the people, it's just, you can just really see it, how it permeates in the whole culture. No one looks each other in the eye. No one's friendly. Even the waiter at a restaurant, and I don't know if that's cultural or not, but they're just not friendly at all. It's just, everyone is really in a bad mood here. You brought up the movie The Purge, Anarchy. I hate that title because true anarchy is just without a government, and we would have a much more peaceful and prosperous world. Really what it should be called is the purge statism at its worst, turned off at the worst moment. Yeah. And that's sort of what we're seeing here. And in actuality, for all those people who like Bernie Sanders as a one example, this is what he talks about. He talks about this is his country. This should be like the perfect place to show what he wants, because he wants extreme socialism. That's what they have here, and has caused so much poverty. We're sitting here in the barrios right now. He wants guns to be taken away. They've done that. How did that work out? And you can even just look at Chicago with their gun-free zones and see how that works out. And he wants to actually take control of the money supply and probably print a lot more money, and that'll turn into hyperinflation, which they have here. So this really is not that much different than what he's talking about. And I'm an anarchist, so I'm not saying Donald Trump's going to be a heck of a lot better. But for those people who do like Bernie Sanders, come to Venezuela, check it out. It's great.
Yeah, so social planning at its best, with lines down the block for just basic necessities, line down the blocks for public transportation that is insufficient, and then a lot of people talk about the toilet paper, with the government setting up a set price so poor people could afford toilet paper. There's no toilet paper in different stores. We were, obviously we didn't face that same amount of suffering as the average people here do, but we're trying to experience it as best as we can by giving you a full, raw, uncensored picture of everything that we are experiencing here. And it's also fair to mention that Venezuela is a petro state. The United States and Saudi Arabia, overproducing oil, are now also destroying this economy. It's also fair to say that the United States sanctions here have not helped. It's also fair to say that with everything that has been happening with the U.S. aid also funding the groups here has not helped in any way, shape, or form. But overall, from my experiences here, this government here is run by criminals. This is a criminal state run by a few people, total mafia. And I mean, what else could we say? One other topic I wanted to bring up with Jeff is specifically he has a new video out that's getting a lot of hits on the internet, specifically dealing with the economic forecast of the United States. We could only pray that it doesn't get as bad as it is here in the United States. But just tell us about your new video. What are your predictions, and how has this kind of experience kind of added to the wealth of information that you do provide?
Well, you brought up a great point that the problems here aren't solely just caused by things here in the country. A lot of them are. I'd say a good 80% are, but a lot of it is the world controllers, the financial elites. And we were at Bilderberg last year. They are planning a massive collapse of the entire global economy. I just put out a video on it. It's going really viral right now. Everyone should check it out. You'll have a link to it down below in your notes. But I'm expecting complete chaos, collapse, and crisis this year to happen this year by October of this year. And a lot of people might say I'm crazy, but you know, Luke, and we've been to Bilderberg and all these things, there are people controlling these things. They do want certain things to happen. And I say in the video that it's likely that they want to cause complete economic collapse, a lot like here in Venezuela. This might even be a test case. And then to bring in essentially what they have here in Venezuela all over the world, more gun laws, more rules, more regulations, military, martial law, all those sort of things, capital controls, travel controls, and then bring in a new one world government, one world currency by 2018 is my best guess.
Jeff, thank you so much for your wealth of information. We're seeing everything happen here on the front lines with the suitcases of money that you need just to buy basic necessities. As we know, after the 2008 financial crisis, it was never fixed. It was just paid over with more lies and more bullcrap. It's only a matter of time. The United States keeps printing and inflating the currency as well. It's only a matter of time for the truth to come out. And you need to be prepared and you need to be smart. We've taken a lot of precautions to make sure we are safe. Nothing has yet happened to us. But for all the sponsors who are sponsoring We Are Change and keeping this independent, free news organization for you and by you, we're going to have a special behind-the-scenes video showing you just all the tips and tricks on how to not get murdered and kidnapped in Venezuela, which luckily, thank God, we have not yet. Stay tuned here on the front lines, reporting from Venezuela, where the United States has just deemed just a year ago a terrorist state. Here on the front lines, this is Jeff Berwick and Luke Radowski. Subscribe. We're going to have a lot more information coming here your way on youtube.com/We Are Change.
We Are Change on YouTube, wearechange.org. Go check them out. Subscribe on YouTube. Now, we're not there yet, but are we really that far away? If we get someone like Bernie Sanders with what previous presidents have put in place, the precedents that previous presidents have set, it's something that could happen. And people have this utopia, and a lot of people, I remember used to claim, libertarians have this utopian view of a free society with no rules and everybody will just get along. Oh, absolutely not. That's not what libertarians think at all. The argument that libertarianism makes is the oppression of the state in response to bad people doing bad things does not make a better situation. If anything, it only compounds onto that situation. That is shown throughout history, through thousands of years. And when you allow it to continue to grow, it eventually becomes its own demise. But the problem is the people that end up getting hurt the most are generations of the poor, the people that don't have the opportunities that others do. And again, they play off of that and go, we'll give you all this stuff. Then they just inundate where everyone goes to college. almost all of them get some type of degree. Then they're working beside people that don't have a degree, that came straight out of high school into a job and worked their way up. Except they don't have debt. They're not drowning in debt. You know, one of the degrees that I see the most is a business degree. You know, how many people are going to go in debt for a business degree and work beside people that don't have anything but a high school diploma? How is that going to work out? Now, I'm not saying that college, there's no need for college. You know, there's a need for knowledge. There's a need for education. There's a need for, experience too. And I just think that not everyone needs to go to college. We don't need to base your success on college. I think, one, it depends on the field. Two, I think it depends on, did you just go to college or were you working actively as kind of an apprentice while going to college for that field that you're in? So it's something that I think that we base too much on. Do you have a college degree? I think we need to base it on people's ability and the fruit of their labor, kind of more of a free market approach to it. If I got someone that went to college and I got someone that worked for me and proved that they could get to that position, they both do a great job. Neither one's better than the other. I'm probably going to pay them both the same. I'm sorry that person had to go through college to learn it. I think there's better ways. And I would evidently, as a business owner, be giving people opportunity to do it without the college. I think, the apprenticeship that there used to be, I think needs to come back. Because now we're just kind of relying on mindless jobs that are dying off. Frankly, they get to a point where if the job doesn't really take a lot of knowledge, let's see if we can get a robot that can do it. We don't need a person sitting in a chair putting connectors together when we can get a robot to put those connectors together and do it a lot faster and more uniform. And it makes things cheaper. So we need more opportunities for people to also go out on their own and make something of themselves. We have a lot of issues in society right now, definitely when it comes to our economy, whether it be our monetary policy, our education system, and our crony capitalism, corporatism, and government regulation. It's just a compounded issue. And you just don't find people talking about all the issues. They talk about a few of the issues and then talk about how they're going to use the other problems to solve those issues. It doesn't ever work. And I think Ron Paul was the last presidential candidate that was talking about it and talked about it for years. Now, we know government likes to force things on us. One being like, Obamacare and stuff like that. Well, a lot of you know about the controversial documentary that came out, Vaxxed. I have this from We Are Change, the vaccine whistleblower, where the mainstream media doesn't want you to know about. I want to go ahead and play this from We Are Change and kind of get into this. And it really goes back to more government control can lead to a lot bigger issues than, can you afford to buy nice things for your hard work? Your health can be affected by other people's decision on your health. So let's get into this.
This is Zergadowski of WeAreChange.org here at the premiere of Vax. We were joined by one of the main characters in the movie, Brian Hooker, who was a scientist who had many of his research published in international scientific journals. And the film, I have to say, was spectacular, was amazing, was definitely breathtaking. One of the best vaccine movies I have ever seen. One of the main kind of storylines that follows throughout the movie is the very fact of this whistleblower. Can you tell us about this whistleblower, his name, and how you got in contact with him?
Well, the whistleblower's name is Dr. William Thompson. He's one of the lead researchers at the CDC. He's an epidemiologist, and he is still at the CDC. And oddly enough, when I first investigated the CDC, very soon after my own son's autism diagnosis, and when we suspected it was vaccine injury, I started to look at the CDC's research. One of the people that they put me in contact with, this was back in like 2002, was William Thompson. And he did not really like me much at all. But and so it took him about 2 years, but he was able to get the CDC to one of the attorneys to write a letter to tell me to stop contacting, essentially stop bugging the CDC. Well, out of the blue in 2013, I get a call from William Thompson. And he's very different than he was when I had originally reached out to him. And now he wanted to share as much information as he could possibly share. He wanted to talk about my own family situation. He felt very, very badly for my son. And then all of a sudden he started disclosing this information, that the CDC had essentially committed fraud. And so we probably had over 40 phone conversations. I ended up, because the nature of the phone conversations was so revealing, and I felt like the public health and safety was in jeopardy, I did legally record for those phone conversations without his knowledge. And so we then continued our relationship until about August of 2014 when the story first broke.
Now, the information that you guys published in this movie was extremely revealing. I mean, it showed how the CDC whitewashed, covered up, lied. Actual findings showing how autism was directly linked with the mRNA vaccine. Incredible information. Can you just go into some of the details of just some of the documents that are most astounding in this case?
Well, the thing that was most astounding to me was the study that the CDC commenced was it actually, this was when they were looking at the relationship between MMR timing, the timing of the MMR vaccine versus autism incidence. And they were clearly finding that children that got the MMR later in life were having less of a risk of autism. and children that were getting the MMR on time. The CDC recommendation at the time was between 12 and 15 months of age. And children that were receiving the MMR on time were showing, in general, much higher risk of autism. But then when they drilled down in specific population, they were seeing this relationship in African Americans. And I was astounded that they would choose to cover up a relationship in a specific underserved racial group. I mean, that was just beyond the pale. And as Dr. Thompson related to me, his own supervisor, who was one of the people that said, look, we need to get rid of all this information. We need to dump it in a trash can. You can't save the information, was an African-American female herself, another researcher. But she was basically betraying her own race. And even though the evidence was very, very clear, children that were getting the MMR early were at a much higher risk of getting autism. And outside of that, there's another phenomenon called isolated autism. This is children who get an autism diagnosis but don't have any other types of problems like cerebral palsy or hearing impairment or visual impairment. And they saw astronomical risks in isolated autism. Children that were getting the MMR on time were much, much higher, about 8-fold higher risk of getting isolated autism versus those kids that waited until after 3 years of age. And in this case, they just abolished the data. They didn't, they didn't try to dilute down the effect. They basically just said, we're not going to publish this result, and it never saw the light of day. And if it hadn't been for Thompson, then it would have never seen the light of day at all. So.
Incredible cover-up on an extremely important issue. 1 in 45 people now are affected by autism. It used to be 1 in 10,000, and people are even projecting that the number is going to be 1 in 2, strongly affecting African Americans and males. Now, this case is still open. There are still chances to actually blow this case wide open with government. What can we do? How can people get involved? And how can it be open?
Well, one of the things is getting theaters nationwide to screen this movie, to get word out. You know, when the Tribeca Film Festival originally had this movie in the lineup and then pulled the movie, the mainstream media then started to really look at this very, very seriously. And I believe that as more people see the movie, then the mainstream media is not going to be able to ignore it any longer. And we won't have to rely on wonderful outlets like yours in order to get, our news in terms of what actually is going on with pharmaceuticals like vaccines. But, that's the first thing that they can do is really, call your local theater, say you want to see Vax from Cover Up to Catastrophe. And then also write your federal congressional representative and say, look, you need to subpoena William Thompson. As the story unfolds, tell him the story that the movie tells, that here is a CDC whistleblower who is basically sitting in the CDC waiting for somebody to subpoena him. He cannot testify on his own accord without losing his job at the CDC, so he has to be subpoenaed. And we want to put as much pressure on congressional officials to make sure that this has happened, and they have open hearings on, the effects of vaccines and what that is doing, especially in light of the autism epidemic.
Thank you so much for all that information. Thank you so much for your bravery. The film was incredible. Definitely get it out there. Tell all your theaters you have to see this movie. When it comes out, it's going to blow a lot of people away. The pharmaceutical industrial complex is a powerful force to be reckoned with. Thank you so much for standing up against it. And you have to watch this movie.
So we have a situation too where it's still able to be fought, but we know how powerful the pharmaceutical industry can be with their lobbyists and buying off politicians. So it's an uphill battle, but I think really the awareness of it all, I think, is what ends up biting them in the butt. So I guess we'll just see how much of a fight gets put up against this. we have a lot of conflicting stuff coming out about people supporting and not supporting, and it already seems like people are being threatened, but actual evidence of it is not there yet. So I think that people are going to basically stand up against it. And it's not that there isn't true science behind, immunization, but what many believe is going on behind the vaccinations is there being more risk than reported, a lot of cover up. You just heard one of the whistleblowers right there. And really, families' futures put at risk. Do you realize that if they're putting vaccinations that in certain type of people, it targets the child and could cause autism, that, well, if one of your children might get it, then there's a good chance that multiple children, if not all, would possibly get autism because of the vaccination, maybe. And that's what this whistleblower is claiming, that, in certain people, that it would cause an increase. And, well, you could literally wipe out bloodlines. So it kind of becomes more targeted in a way. Don't know if that's just, we're going to keep pushing this because, well, yeah, it might hurt certain people, but we think it'll do better. Well, you hide that information, and then we have people going, well, you should be put in jail if you don't have your kids vaccinated. We got government saying, oh, we should force you to vaccinate. With information like that being covered up, that doesn't seem like it's a good thing for people. And usually if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Your health should be something that you educate yourself on, and there's mixed information out there, of course, and you gotta make a intelligent decision on what choices you're gonna make. And no one's perfect. Some people are gonna make wrong decisions. We all make wrong decisions. There's probably things that we do that we think are good for us, and really they might not be bad for us, but they're not really any beneficial. How many things come out? Oh, there was something the other day about veggie chips. So you go across my news feed. But talking about how there's a lot of veggie chips out there that are mainly potato. I think it's something about powdered onion and powdered bell pepper or something like that. I don't know. But basically, not really veggie chips. So it's one of those things people think, oh, I'm going to do something that's healthier. They're really not looking that far into it. Looking at the ingredients is key. What's first on the ingredients is probably going to be your prime ingredients. What comes last on the ingredients list are probably going to be very minimal. It's a choice you have to make to educate yourself too. So if you decide not to take the chance to educate yourself and research yourself, then you're kind of relying on other people to make those decisions, and that's what you have to blame yourself for if something goes wrong, because you didn't want to make that decision. And you can't make decisions on everything and, you know, be knowledgeable about everything. But I think there's a lot of things that, you know, I'd rather leave the football up to someone else and kind of look into what I'm eating a little bit more. I'm not super picky, but I do try to eat healthy for the most part that way, and limit my junk food and fast food stuff. It's not something that I want to eat and go, yeah, I'm healthy. I just had a McDonald's cheeseburger. Probably not the healthiest thing you could eat. So probably not the worst thing you could eat either. There's a lot of bad stuff out there. But, you know, one day might come out that things that we eat today that we think are healthy might not be as healthy as we thought they were. Again, you can't be perfect, but at least take an effort. And I think the more freedom you seek, the more effort you do take in kind of looking into yourself and going, I'm going to not be perfect, but, you know, at least put a little effort in. I care enough about myself not to just give up. And when we look at politics too, maybe when we look at front runners and the secondary front runners in the two main parties, couldn't we go, you know what? I'm not going to make one of those decisions. Talking about other decisions, though, one of the people looking for the Libertarian nomination, John McAfee, there was an article, Business Insider. I wanted to cover this real quick. Let me try to get back up here. Okay. This out Business Insider, John McAfee to FBI. I'll put the pit bull snapping at your ankles forever, or I'll be the pit bull snapping at your ankles forever. John McAfee is running for U.S. president as a member of the Libertarian Party. This is an op-ed he wrote and gave us permission to run. On Friday, the Department of Justice yet again assumed either that we, the American citizens, are idiots, or that we will, through fear, cave into its arguments that to have security, we must give up some personal privacy. I, for one, being unafraid and fed up with being assumed to be an idiot. I thought I had ended the FBI Apple issue when I debated Steve Rogers, the FBI mouthpiece, on CNN for 15 minutes last month. Steve began by declaring that to gain security, we would have to give up privacy. Knowing that privacy is necessary prerequisite to liberty, I marveled at how a high-level FBI mouthpiece could have missed reading Benjamin Franklin's magnum opus with witticisms. Those who would trade privacy or liberty for security are deserving of neither. I grabbed hold of Roger's ankle and chomped down until at the end he conceded that maybe we could work together. The FBI dropped its request that Apple unlock the iPhone used by one of the attackers in last year's San Bernardino, California mass shooting after I disclosed that the FBI had a contract with Celebrite, an Israeli mobile device forensic company signed in 2013 to purchase devices designed to unlock any iPhone And yes, the FBI was fully aware that it had these devices before the legal challenge to Apple. I assumed after DOJ dropped its court challenge that it would be the end of it. And I would get back to the task of campaigning for president and hopefully doing a little fishing. But Friday, in a letter, the DOJ said it still wanted Apple's help to access data on an iPhone used by John Feng, a meth dealer in New York. On hearing this, I immediately assumed I was having an LSD flashback and took a substantial quantity of benzodiazepines to bring myself down. After sufficient time was allowed, I checked back into reality and discovered that, in fact, this hardly believable action on behalf of the FBI was real. Nothing has changed. Does the FBI think because I am 70 I'm tired and I will not go through this nightmare again? It is planning to arrest me on bogus charges so I have no access to the media. Has it contracted a hit on me and plan on my not being around to fight? Don't discount this last question. I was living in Belize when 42 armed soldiers stormed my property. They were paramilitary thugs trained by the FBI in Quantico, Virginia, and supplied with AR-15s given to them by the U.S. government. They shot my dog in front of my eyes with one of the AR-15s to prove they were serious. They destroyed $500,000 worth of my property. They tortured me, all because I had refused to be extorted by the corrupt government of Belize. I know fully well, more than most of you, that FBI is capable of. I am alerting our government now. I will not ever give up the freedoms and privacy that are taken away from me through any inaction on my part will likewise be taken away from the children and grandchildren of every one of you who are reading this article. You don't have the right to take away privacy and freedom from our children, but by not standing up with me, you're doing just that. I will fight the authoritarianism that is growing within our government to my dying day, which I believe gets closer the more I speak out, alone if necessary. But do I need to be alone up here? Not even Apple CEO Tim Cook has thanked me for my efforts. I am branded eccentric, a misogynist, a fugitive. But where might you be if I weren't up here risking everything? Consider that for a moment. Where might you be? Now, I think he is a little eccentric and a little bit of a mystery to most people, but his belief in freedom has been pretty apparent. But, there's a lot of things like, I've seen somewhere that, most of the candidates, when asked about the non-aggression principle, kind of shrugged it off, which kind of makes me think of, well, every other politician. But this whole Apple and the FBI and the federal government, like I said, this isn't about being able to get an iPhone. This is about remotely being able to access any iPhone and get any information off of it, having a backdoor that way. That's what they want. And apparently they're still fighting for it. Okay. Give me a second here. Sorry, I'm having a little issue here. Okay. Now, like I said, I'm not a Trump supporter. I don't like any of the Republican candidates, any of the Democratic candidates. Very, not really a supporter of any of the third party candidates. Really, I think the whole election this year is a joke. It really is. It's just, they're not even trying anymore. They really aren't. Okay. I have one from AMTV. Last clip we'll play here. This says Donald Trump loses presidency, but wins big in 2016. This out of AMTV, Christopher Green. Let's go ahead and play this. Again, not a Donald Trump supporter, but I kind of bounce around, play a little bit of everything from a little bit of all the candidates. You look at things that Bernie Sanders brings up, he brings up legitimate things, but problem is what he labels it to go along with his ideology. Many of the candidates bring up legitimate things, including Donald Trump, but I don't think they're going to, or he's not going to. I don't really know at this point. I still think that there's more to this than what we're seeing. But we'll see at the end of this. But this one from AMTV again, Christopher Green. Donald Trump loses presidency but wins big in 2016.
Visit our sponsor, criminal defense attorney Mark J. Victor, right now. That's Mark J. Victor, the attorney for freedom. Visit today at attorneyforfreedom.com and request a Freedom Essentials Kit. Know your rights and get advice from a certified specialist in criminal law. Watch Mark's Top 5 Things Every Gun Owner Needs to Know video and How to Survive a Traffic Stop, along with the inside scoop on DUI laws, the drug war, gun rights, and what we can do to ensure a more free and open society. Hey, everybody. I'm Christopher Green, and you're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. It's Wednesday, April 6, 2016. Donald Trump loses the presidency, but wins big in 2016, and I'll explain. I'm sorry, I got to call a duck a duck. He loses. He doesn't win. And I put out a video that was pretty groundbreaking at the time, talks about this, how Donald Trump is likely to get the GOP nod. I think it'll be a fight to the finish line between him and Cruz. There'll be a lot of fanfare. It'll be a media circus. But ultimately, he'll become the nominee. We'll see how this plays out with the delegate count, etc. But that he loses by a gnat's ass to Hillary Rodham Clinton. And the reason is, it's been the plan from the get-go. The elites know this. Wall Street knows this. In fact, I even read an article earlier this morning that said basically just that. They're pricing in almost a guaranteed Hillary Clinton win. Now, obviously, she secures a lot of financing from Wall Street, millions and millions of dollars. Everybody knows this but the American people for some reason. And again, none of this is meant to sound defeatist. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that Donald Trump, and I support Donald Trump, I hope he becomes president in 2016. But I'm smart enough to understand that the whole system is rigged against us. The system doesn't work. America has been hijacked. That's the point here. The right-left paradigm is full of shit. It's a bullshit system. So although we've got outsiders, quote unquote, like Bernie Sanders, and outsiders like Donald Trump, quote unquote, it's great. It's a catharsis. It's a political vacuum that's harnessing all this anger because the people are pissed off, but that's all it's doing. It doesn't accomplish a darn thing. And I'm sorry to say that. You know, it's my job as a media analyst to call a duck, to give you a real opinion as I see it. And this is what I see right now. Now, the loss in Wisconsin yesterday was devastating for Donald Trump. because it greatly diminishes his chances of securing an all-out majority delegate count of 1237 in order to secure that GOP bid to become the nominee. Now, it's not that he still can't. Again, I think it's going to be a fight to the finish. I think he ultimately gets the nod and beats Ted Cruz. But let's make no mistake about it. The loss yesterday night was devastating. Bernie Sanders did well. Very interesting, but Hillary Clinton is still dominating the delegate and, most importantly, the super delegate vote. So we'll see if there's a brokered convention. We'll see if the outlier in Paul Ryan comes to reality. We'll watch all of this media circus play out. But again, Donald Trump loses, in my humble opinion, in 2016 to Hillary Rodham Clinton. For a reason, because it's pre-planned, it's pre-engineered, and that's the system. There's no democracy. It's not a constitutional republic anymore. We've been hijacked by a Manchurian candidate. And the only way in God's green earth that Donald Trump would become and win the presidency in 2016 is if there was an outright coup in the United States of America. You know, we see this in other parts of the world because the U.S., through its CIA intelligence assets and allies, engineer it in places like the Middle East. We see it in Egypt, for example, with the revolution and re-revolution. We see it with the ouster backed by NATO and murder of Muammar Gaddafi. We see it in Iraq. We see it in Afghanistan. We see it in all these places. That's what it would take in America for Donald Trump to truly win. Now, he's still a winner. Don't get me wrong, because this is a media circus, and he's a media magnate. And he's going to be able to use this to his advantage, which he absolutely should. Again, he's a mass marketer. He's a salesman, the art of the deal. He's a closer. He'll probably end up suing the Electoral College. There'll be all this fanfare around it when he loses by a gnat's ass to Hillary Clinton. And it will only translate into further speaking engagements, speaking fees, reality TV shows, more entertainment, and hoopla, which is where Donald Trump comes from. Now, he should do that. He should use the anger of the American people when he ultimately loses. But ultimately, it only pads his pockets even more. I mean, let's be truthful here. This actually works in Donald Trump's favor, even if he loses. If he wins, he becomes the president of the United States. Not likely to happen. And if he loses, he only uses this marketing campaign to his advantage, and it only increases the stature of the Trump brand. Absolutely brilliant business move. And that's exactly who Donald Trump is. He's a brilliant businessman. So he can't lose. Yes, he might lose the presidency. I think he does. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he wins. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Panama paper leak that went out, which honestly is so full of shit, I couldn't even read any of the information that the mainstream media was spewing our direction. Because we all know it's a psyop. We all know it's full of shit. Just like Edward Snowden, double if not triple agent, this is the perfect definition of a limited hangout, where they supposedly leak all this damning information on the elites, but nobody at the highest level goes down. George Soros isn't affected. The Rockefellers aren't affected. The Fords aren't affected. The Rothschilds aren't affected because they engineered it. So we know who's behind it. We know that the leak is an absolute psyop. It's psychological warfare. It's bullshit. It's the very definition of a limited hangout. Just like with Edward Snowden. What did Edward Snowden tell us? That the NSA is spying on us? Well, tell me something, Snowden, I don't already know. Again, it only covers up the more damning information that they don't want leaked out to the public. Again, none of the Rockefellers, none of the Fords, none of the Rothschilds, none of the hierarchy, upper echelon of elites in this country are affected by this leak at all. They've been glossed over for a reason, because they're the same individuals that engineered it. So we all know this to be true. We also know they're behind this rigged election in 2016. It all ties back into this propaganda bullshit web. You know, it's absolutely amazing. And people are just caught up in this bread and circus. I mean, it's just such good entertainment. And it's all a facade. It's all a ruse. And honestly, frankly, pisses me off. I'm angry today. I'm angry. Americans, I think, are smarter than this. A lot of them are. I know a lot of you tuning in are. You see it. You see the game like I do. You see the ruse. You see through the bullshit. You can wade through it. You know it's a lie. You know, it's saddening because this country has literally been hijacked. It's been taken over. There's been a silent revolution, a plot in the making that goes back hundreds of years. And it's been successful. Our country has been stolen from us, people. It's up to the American people to take it back. So we should harness the anger of this political vacuum. We should harness the anger when Trump inevitably loses because it's already rigged. We should use it, but the people need to use it. Again, the only way there is a real change in this country is that if we quote unquote take it back. If there's a legitimate coup to bring America to its greatness again, back to the constitutional principles and values that made up the foundation that our founding fathers set up for us in the first place. Our worst nightmare has become our reality. This is the George Orwell 1984 situation, dystopic reality that all of us fear. We live in it today. We see it through mass media. We see it through technology. We see it through the surveillance state. We see it through psychological warfare like the Panama Papers. We see it through trillion-dollar bank bailouts. We see it time and time again. Yet for some reason, nothing changes. Isn't that interesting? Not a freaking thing changes. And it's a piss-off. We need to demand more as the American people. We need to understand, if we don't already, that we have the power. Again, use and harness this political vacuum. Harness this anger. Trump should sue the Electoral College, should sue everybody to oblivion if this election is thrown the other way, so it can install Hillary Clinton, or if he's bypassed by the chosen one in the name of Paul Ryan, who isn't even friggin' running for president, but the GOP establishment, because they want to work against Trump, are going to frickin' install somebody else. Big money politics. The 0.00001%. The Rothschilds, the Carnegies. All these high-level families that own this country. This country has owners. That's the truth. That's the George Carlin knew this intimately. He used to broadcast this brilliantly through his comedic art, but he was really a politician and a media commentator. Brilliant. Did it through the art of comedy. That's how he got that message out. Again, we the people have the power. This is our country. These people are political servants. Donald Trump's a political servant. I hope he knows that. I think he does. We certainly know Hillary Rodham Clinton doesn't know that. She is a true elite bought and paid for by these scumbags. Again, takes millions and millions of dollars from Wall Street, fossil fuel companies, even though she'll deny it, say that she doesn't, even though we know that she does.
Thank you for tackling climate change. Will you act on your words and reject fossil fuel money in the future in your campaign?
I do not. I have money for people who work for fossil fuel companies. I am so sick. I am so sick of the Sanders campaign lying about me. I'm sick of them.
Takes money from these families indirectly through these NGOs and special interest groups, etc., ad nauseum. This is a very dangerous time in American politics. This is a very dangerous time in American history, and it makes me sick to my stomach. America used to have balls. We used to be fighters. We used to harness anger in this country and use it to our advantage. We used to stand up with brawn and physicality. We do none of that anymore. We're wussies. We're weak. We let the state just kind of overrule us. Because it's powerful. This mind control, this psychological warfare, the media, the establishment is powerful. Look how they even altered Ted Cruz's appearance in the last couple of days. Anybody notice that during his town hall? Prior to this Wisconsin primary, they altered his appearance. They changed his makeup situation. He had like a different shirt on. He looked more pleasant. He actually looked better. But they literally altered his appearance, for crying out loud. It's breathtaking. It's sick. Politics is sick. A lot of people ask themselves, why would they even get involved in politics? Why would you even want to be a part of it? I mean, not only do you need $1 billion+ like Trump, because if you don't have any money, you can't possibly run for political office, but why would you even want to do it? I think Trump's actually in it for the right reasons. One of the reasons why I support him. Yes, he's got an ego. Yes, he's rich. But I actually think he wants to change this country back and put it back to its greatness again. Make America great again. I really believe that. When America dominated that geopolitical landscape, we're weak now. We're getting owned. We're getting destroyed by the rising East. We're getting worked over by Vladimir Putin. We're getting bitch slapped by China through trade deals and all these things that we've been talking about in a public forum. Through our political correctness society. For a reason. It's sad. It's disheartening. It's scary to see the situation and to see where we're at in America today. Hopefully there's an epiphany at some point. We have that 1776 moment in our minds. We realize the truth. I think a lot of us do here. I'm preaching to the choir. More Americans need to wake up. Share this video everywhere. Make it viral. Have them watch this video now. So as all of this unfolds, they see it was all predictable. Go back to our thousands of videos that we've posted through the years, through your gracious support. The wars that we talked about before they even happened in places like Syria. The mass surveillance state. The power that makes up the divide and conquer strategy of the mainstream media through race relations and all these things that we've seen in recent years. Again, for a reason. This is so powerful. People need to understand it. They need to understand how modern society works. And technology, although it's being used against us, is actually probably arguably our greatest asset. To share truth, to share information, all through the power of a mouse click. You have the power to do that right now. Share this video. Share the truth. Share all of our videos. Get it out everywhere. Make it viral.
Christopher Green, AM TV on YouTube, also amtvmedia.com. Check them out. Subscribe. Again, I'm not a Trump supporter. I think, I do think that he is a nationalist. I think he does want America to be great. That's because I believe he feels very, very, very comfortable here in America and doesn't want it to fall. But he's an authoritarian nationalist, and that's his demeanor at least comes off to be egotistical in the way he would be an authoritarian, which I completely disagree with. So that's one of the reasons why I don't support him. One authoritarian for the other, I don't think accomplishes anything. It's just a Band-Aid that only opens up another wound, and we keep repeating history. Again, why I look at this whole election like a circus. What are our real options? We don't really have any real options. We haven't had real options other than Ron Paul, which, again, they weren't going to let win the election. There's no way that we're going to get out of this issue without a outsider just coming in and getting some crazy amount of support. Maybe a next election cycle. Not a lot of hope out there. We'll see what really happens. You got third party this election actually doing pretty decent when it comes to people looking towards the Libertarian Party, which kind of surprised me, even though I know that I know that there's a growing movement towards more freedom and all that, but it seems like we still don't have a lot of people really opening up, because you see people that were Ron Paul supporters supporting Bernie or Trump. You see people that were maybe a Libertarian Party supporters, but, we'll go for Donald Trump. We're settling. And I just don't believe in settling. I think it never does what you hope it'll do. I think you end up fighting the battle just down the road a little bit farther. Okay, let me try to get this article up, maybe. Come on. Okay, I guess it's just not okay. Guess not. Okay, we'll just move on then. Okay. Come on. Sorry, guys. Browser keeps freaking out on me. Okay. Now, a lot of people have been wondering why Kasich is still in the race. And I think it's to help dilute Trump's delegates, for one, and also keep Trump's delegates down. I think it's to control both of them, because even though Ted Cruz, I think, isn't really a truthful guy completely. I think he's more scripted, it seems like. Maybe too polished. But I also think that he's not what the establishment wants. Even if he's willing to do some of their bidding, he's not who they want. Paul Ryan, possibility. Ted Cruz hasn't put in his time for the establishment to trust him. He's played a little bit with them, but he's also kind of went off on his own. I think that was a political move. Kind of so he could run for president. But again, I don't think that he's what they're looking for. So I think that's why Kasich is in. But InfoWars here. Former NSA Snoophead endorses Kasich for president. And I think this is to try to dilute some more of Donald Trump's support, but I don't think it's going to work. So maybe it's to help dilute Ted Cruz's. That might make more sense. I don't know. We'll see. But it says here the former director of CIA and National Security, NSA, has said that only viable presidential candidate in his eyes is Ohio Governor John Kasich. General Michael Hayden, the architect and overseer of NSA's most intrusive spy programs, endorsed Kasich in his statement, even though the candidate cannot mathematically win the nomination and even trails some who are no longer in the race in terms of delegates. Governor John Kasich, who served 18 years on the House Armed Service Committee, is the only candidate in the entire field that with the best experience, expertise, and leadership skills required to be Commander-in-Chief, Hayden said in a statement. John Kasich has serious proposals to strengthen our military, defeat ISIS, and stand up for freedom around the world. Proposals that rise far beyond bumper stickers and amateur rhetoric, this statement continued. Hayden would naturally not be a supporter of Ted Cruz given that Texas Senator's previous sponsorship of legislation to rein in the powers of the intelligence community. Kasich has taken a more standoff position on government surveillance, saying that civil liberty concerns should be balanced with those of national security. In February, Hayden also slammed Donald Trump on foreign policy, saying that the military would have to disobey Trump if he followed through on certain campaign promises as president, referring to Trump's suggestion to torture suspected terrorists and their families. Hayden told TV host Bill Maher if he were to order that once in government, the American armed forces would refuse to act, even though they did before. Hayden also commented on Trump's condemnation of the Bush administration for not doing more to act on pre-9/11 intelligence warnings. Hayden stated that there were good enough warnings for the intelligence community about a coming terror attack in the months before 9/11, but that no action was taken for political reasons. Even if we had the data to be more specific, which we didn't, what's a politically acceptable mechanism that George Bush does? If he imposes a TSA thing on August 15th, what's the attitude of the American people? What are you? He actually may have caused more harm. Hayden, who was in charge of the NSA when 9/11 happened, said in response to a question on Trump's comments. Basically what Hayden's saying, well, what if he did? You know, he could cause more harm. So it's good that they didn't act on intelligence. What? That makes no sense unless you're trying to grow the scope of government, which Hayden wants. Which Kasich always kind of plays with the elite on both sides of the aisle when it comes to taking your freedoms away. Remember, he kind of helped with the Clinton assault rifle ban. So think about that. Just think about that. But of course, why would he do it? Well, it's to dilute someone's delegates. They want to put someone like Paul Ryan in. So someone said that they thought they seen Paul Ryan ad for president. I'm thinking, what? He's not announcing, and I'm thinking, oh, it could be a super PAC trying to push Paul Ryan before he would actually be announced as running. Again, if you don't remember, Paul Ryan replaced Boehner, which many point out he's just as much of a elitist politician as Boehner. He's going to play the same. Yep, we're going to get along, us and the top Democrats and the top Republicans. You know, he's that type of person, politician. A lot of what he's been behind is things most people that think about freedom, free markets, liberty, don't support these things. Gang of Eight, you know, all this stuff. Rubio, you think about all these people that are party line elitist type politicians. They're puppets. They want to be a part of the club. And a lot of them are pretty good at it. And we keep electing these type of people. And it just amazes me. But again, the youth is also manipulated a lot and brainwashed. So we have a lot of youth that come up. And it's not until they get older that they go, this is all crap anyways. Many of the older people I meet anymore kind of look at the elections like crap. They don't even go out and vote anymore. Not all of them. There's a few that they just go and vote just to say they voted. That's just almost a routine that they've done it so many years that they can't stop. Others go, that's too much energy. It's just a waste of time anyways. So, you know, either way, it's not really I love these politicians. It's just, That's really how I look at this whole election. I'm kind of with George Carlin on this one. Again, a great comedian and told the truth. Oh, we're at the end of the broadcast, and I don't want you guys to forget to go check out ucy.tv. Check out all the other great broadcasts on the network. And if you scroll down towards the bottom, there's an Amazon button. Click that button, takes you to Amazon store, and get the same great prices, same great shipping deals. And at the same time, UCY gets a little kickback to help cover operating costs. It's essential that, you know, we get your support. That's what keeps us on the air and keeps this network broadcasting when we know mainstream media is just another mouthpiece for political and government needs. So when you look at all the pop news all morning and you want some real news, you know that UCY is broadcasting. Always check us out. And you can also get us on the TuneIn app if you download the TuneIn app on your smartphone and search for UCY.